A few female R&B stars enjoy the kind of consistent acclaim that this vocalist received throughout her whole career that has spanned over 6 decades. This singer is known as the greatest of all modern blues singers, and she recorded a numerous of enduring hits. Despite possessing one of the most powerful voices in music, only blatantly gained her the attention of the mainstream audience, appearing rarely on the pop charts despite scoring 30 R&B hits. This vocalist lived a rough and troubled life that could inspire dozens of soap opera shows, while battling drug addiction and bad relationships, all while outrunning a variety of health and legal problems. The centerpiece of today's video is all about the legendary Etta James. Now before we start, let's be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push that notification bell to be sure you won't miss out on any more content. Now, without further ado, let's cue that intro. Etta James was born James Etta Hawkins in Los Angeles, California on January 25th, 1938. Her mother was just 14 years old at the time of her birth, and growing up, she never knew who her father was, although she would later say that she had reason to believe that her father was the well-known pool hustler Minnesota Fats. Throughout most of her childhood, James was raised by friends and relatives instead of her mother. While living with her grandparents, this is where she began regularly attending Baptist church. James' voice made her a natural for the choir, and despite her young age, she appeared on local radio shows. Now, by the age of 12, after the death of her foster mother, James began living with her biological mother in San Francisco. Now, with her mother, she experienced little adult supervision, and she began to slide into juvenile delinquency. Now, going through all this trouble, her love for music was growing stronger. While being in San Francisco, she met 2 sisters from New Orleans, Jean and Abby Mitchell, and the trio later formed a group that was named the Creolettes. They began singing at the Recreational Center at the Army and 3rd Streets in San Francisco Housing Projects. The group began playing at record hops around town, and during one of these stops, they met Hank Ballard and the Midnighters, who had an R&B hit titled "Work With Me Annie" on the charts. With a little bit of encouragement from the Midnighters, James wrote an answer song called "Roll With Me Henry."
Roll with me, roll me, baby. Roll with me.
Now, although James and Jean was miters, Abby, she was 23 years old at the time, and she attended area clubs and bar rooms. The girls attracted the attention of famous band leader Johnny Otis, who then arranged for them to sign with Modern Records. With the group officially recorded the song that James wrote under a new name, The Peaches, which was a name that came from Etta's lifelong nickname. The song that James wrote, they renamed it to The Wallflower, and it became a hit in 1955. And it became a hit in 1955 through Georgina Gibbs, who scored a bigger success with her cover version, much to Etta's dismay. After charting with a second R&B hit with the song "Good Rockin' Daddy,"
Man, no blow. Now hold it, don't move it. Now boogie some more. You.
the Peaches broke up and James stepped out on her own. James' solo career was a slow starter, and she spent several years cutting low-selling singles for modern and touring small clubs until 1960, when Leonard Chess signed her to his new record label, Chess Records. James recorded for Chess subsidiary labels Argo and Checker into the late 70s. Working with producers Ralph Bass and Harvey Fuqua, James embraced a style that fused the passion of R&B with the polish of jazz and scored a number of hits for the label, including All I Could Do Was Cry,
The eye on her finger,
My Dearest Darling,
my dearest darling,
Trust in Me,
will see us through. If only you trust.
and At Last.
And life is like a song.
While James was enjoying a career resurgence, her personal life was not faring as well. She began experimenting with drugs as a teenager, and by the time she was 21 years old, she was a heroin addict. As the 60s wore, she found it increasingly difficult to balance her habit with her career, especially when she began to clash with the producers at Chess Records, fighting to be paid her royalties and dealing with a numerous of abusive romantic relationships. James' career ran into a slump in the mid-60s, but in 1967, she began recording with producer Rick Hall, where she adopted a tougher, grittier style that helped her bounce back onto the R&B charts with tunes to Mama and
To love you and give you the world. Now you find that you've been misused.
I'd Rather Go Blind.
My soul should cry, girl. Cry.
In the early 70s, James had fallen off the charts again. Her addiction was raging, and she turned to petty crime to support her habit. She entered rehab on a court order in 1973. That same year, she recorded the rock-oriented, self-entitled album that's also known as Only a Fool. Through most of the 70s, a sober James made ends meet by touring small clubs and playing occasionally at blues festivals, even recording for Chess with limited success. Despite the high quality in her work in 1978, longtime fans of James, the Rolling Stones, paid homage to her by inviting her to open up some shows for them while on tour, which led to her signing a deal with Warner Brothers Records, which led to her cutting the album Deep in the Night. While the album didn't sell well, it did receive amazing reviews and reminded serious blues and R&B fans that James was still a force to be reckoned with. By her own account, James fell back into drug addiction after becoming involved with a man that had a habit, and she went back to playing in clubs and anywhere she could until she kicked the habit again. In 1988, James signed with Island Records and cut a powerful comeback album named 7 Year Itch. This album sold respectfully, and James was determined to keep her career on track by playing frequently live shows and recording regularly, issuing the album Sticking to My Guns in 1990, followed by the album The Right Time in 1992. In 1994, a year after she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, James signed to the private music label and recorded the album Mystery Lady Songs of Billie Holiday, which was a tribute album to the great vocalist that she had long cited as a key influence. Now, the album earned Etta her first Grammy Award. The relationship with private music proved sympathical. In between the years of 1995 and 2003, James cut 8 albums for the label, while also maintaining a busy touring schedule. In 2003, James published an autobiography titled Rage to Survive, the Etta James story. And in 2008, she was portrayed on screen by R&B star Beyonce Knowles in the film Cadillac Records, a film that was loosely based on the history of Chess Records. Knowles recorded a faithful cover of At Last for the film's soundtrack and later performed the song at Barack Obama's 2009 inauguration ball several days later. James made headlines, but during the concert she had said, quote, "I can't stand Beyonce. She had no business up there singing my song that I've been singing forever. Later that same week, James told the New York Times that the statement was meant to be a joke. She stated, quote, "I didn't really mean anything. Even as a little child, I've always had a comedian kind of attitude." James did go on to say that she was saddened that she wasn't invited to perform the song.
It looks like Beyoncé may have upset another music legend. She managed to offend Aretha Franklin at the Grammy Awards last year by calling Tina Turner the Queen. Now soul superstar Etta James is seriously hacked off with the Destiny's Child star. Beyoncé plays Etta in the upcoming Cadillac Records and has been popping up at various events singing her song At Last. But it seems it was one time too many for Etta. She's not impressed Beyoncé performed the number for President Obama's first dance after his inauguration.
But I can't stand Beyonce. She had no business up there singing up there on a big old President Day and gonna be singing my song that I've been singing forever.
At the Cadillac Records premiere, Beyoncé described the legend as her hero and told reporters Etta loved her rendition of what has become her calling card. But it seems Etta's no longer feeling the love and wants her song back.
In 2010, James was hospitalized with MRSA-related infections, and it was later revealed that she received treatment for dependence on painkillers and was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, which her son claimed was the likely cause of her outburst regarding Beyoncé. James released her last album in 2011. Later that year, Etta James was diagnosed with terminal leukemia and sadly passed away on January 20th, 2012 at the age of 73. Now, before we go, I have a question for you all. What is your favorite song from Etta James?